How'd you get that fancy fuzzy
Hold
background?
on. Right there. Oops. Sorry. I don't know what's going on in my. Apparently, I've
That's
got
all right.
PS95 on.
Oh yeah, that happens.
There.
I was gonna say, how'd you get that fancy fuzzy background? I can never get mine to do that.
Oh yeah, I was playing around with it last week, and there's a setting where you can fuzz your background. I think it's, where did I find that?
Is it like virtual background?
Yeah, where was that? Because I was playing around trying to see what different things there were. Where was that? Maybe it was up at the top. View, no. Where did I find that?
Studio effects, video filters.
Maybe that was it.
Yeah, let's see. Boost.
Yeah, because I didn't know how to do it before, and then Jenny said she figured it out, and I could tell. I mean, she's always, her background's fuzzy, so then I was like, oh well, I'll try it too.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. You can do it from anywhere. That's kind of nice. Let's see. I know I can make myself have a piggy face, but that's not helpful. Let's see.
That would be kind of fun though.
Yeah. All right.
Let's try to trade with that. I kind of want to know how that works.
Well, if you go to, if you open up your settings, oh, here, see theater.
That's awesome.
Cool. Hey, everybody. Yeah, okay. None.
That's awesome.
Yeah, if you go to settings and then background and effects, it's got a bunch of backgrounds and effects on there. What's this one? Was a bird.
Now I'm having trouble finding settings.
Oh, now I'm a shark.
What?
I'm a shark now.
Oh, look at that. Oh, shoot. That's awesome. Oh, there are people that jumped in the waiting room.
Oh, admit. Admit. Okay. I'll be quiet.
Good morning.
Morning.
Hey, Jacob.
Hi.
We were playing with filters.
Yeah,
Oh,
I was a baby shark a second ago.
You are.
I missed it.
I was asking Sarah how she fuzzes out her background because I can't figure that out.
Oh, yeah. How do I do it? Live participants chat. Oh, settings.
Yep, under your settings.
Settings.
Blur my background. I
Background.
found it.
Where is it, Jacob? General.
It's the 3 dots in the upper right corner of your screen. Your
Okay.
window.
Oh. Choose virtual pin.
See, now I'm not finding it. I see. I was a participant when I was playing around with it last week.
Oh, look, a pride filter. That's precious.
There you go. Oh, look at the puppy.
Porky.
Porgy. Good morning, Andrea.
Good morning. You don't want to see my face this morning.
Oh, come on.
I know I blur the black background, but I should be able to blur my face too.
Can't be that bad.
They should let you put like an emoji over your face, like not yours, but mine.
You can't.
Oh, you have a flower.
I think
This
it's
is too cute.
It's video filter. Choose video filter.
I like that.
I'm having a bird with me today.
I have a party
Yeah.
hat on. I have a piece of pizza on my head.
Oh, there you go. Kids, no wonder kids have so much fun with Zoom. Oh, look at the shades. That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, it's better.
That's-
Awesome. That's funny. Bank robber. No.
Cool. Gotta have a little fun.
Yeah, I love it.
We have 1 minute and then we'll get started. So anything new and exciting anybody has happening or want to chat about before we start?
New and exciting.
New and exciting?
New and exciting. We're getting a new roof on our townhouse.
Oh, that's fun. We're getting a new sewer line.
Oh, is that what was causing your water issues?
No,
Oh.
no, I've got 2 current water issues in my condo, and
Oh,
essentially I'm kind of the one spearheading all the efforts to get it repaired because everyone else is kind of like, oh my God, ah. And I'm like, okay, one thing at a time. First we do this, then we do this. So yeah, my upstairs neighbor is brand new. She just closed on the 2nd, and her boiler is like leaking. One of the pipes, the actuator valve or whatever broke. So now it's been dripping into the wall between my bedroom. So there's been a dehumidifier in my unit for like 2 weeks now, just running constantly. Because they can't find the part because the part is European or something. And
oh boy.
yeah. I also never get any updates. I have to like call and be like, have you looked for the part? Did you find the part? Is anybody looking for it? And every time they're like, oh, we should come back and look at that. I'm like,
Meanwhile, there's mold growing in my walls.
yeah. And then, yeah, they do think there is. The clean response guy was like, oh yeah, we're gonna have to rip this out for sure. And I was like, okay, because they always say that,
Yeah.
sure, we'll see.
Yeah.
But it is kind of deformed now and a little mushy looking, so probably.
Well,
And
that's
then we're having an issue with our air conditioners leaking into the walls and stuff. That's affecting another unit, so I'm not alone on that one at least.
Shoot.
Yep, that's what's new and exciting with me.
fun. Well, I think, on that note, I'm sorry to hear about that, Jacob. But now, well, yeah, we got assessed $8,000 for some issues with a new roof and stuff, but I had really good insurance and it paid for it. So a lot of the people in our complex didn't. So that side note on condos and townhouses, when you get insurance for them, make sure there is an assessment clause in there. We have up to $25,000 covered if we're assessed for roofs or siding or something exterior.
Oh.
So yeah, that $8,000 ended up being paid by my insurance company. So
That's really good to know. I should look into that.
yeah, because when we have clients that close, I didn't know much about townhouse or condo insurance, and I just left it up to the insurance agent. But and still, they are the expert. You don't want to overstep your
Right.
area, but that's something to mention to somebody when they're purchasing, to make sure there is money in there in case you are assessed for something like that. So
Yeah.
You're talking about a gap insurance, Sarah?
I guess essentially it's so that 8,000 that we were assessed for so our roof it was malfunctioning. There's something wrong with the actual components in the roof, and then they also have to replace them. So the insurance would only cover a certain amount because of the malfunction, in the roof materials. And so I had something in my policy that would cover up to 25,000 if I was assessed for roof and siding and different things. So I did not have to pay the 8,000. So that was really something. I just said that's something to look into with our
I'm
clients.
not familiar with that concept, but there is usually a master policy deductible that have become very huge, and you can get insurance for that portion.
So
That's the normal standard kind
Yeah.
of condo insurance.
I have a call.
Well, it's an upgrade on your insurance, but it's certainly a good idea. Jacob's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so I have a call
Mhm.
to my insurance agent to learn more, so I know how to present that to clients, or to
Because
mention.
many of those deductibles are like $10,000 and $15,000 now.
Or 25, I've seen.
Oh, you mentioned that. Yeah. Jeez.
That's true too. So we are going to get ourselves started. This is a topic that Carson also had felt was important to discuss as our market is shifting, is how to prepare and have a good listing presented out there. First thing I'm going to ask you a question. Who knows what the numbers 44 and 22 have to do with the market right now? This is a tough question because it's kind of personal to me, but 44 days. How about that? 44 days.
Market time now.
It's like a days on market kind of thing.
Yeah, it does.
That is the days on market for my 2 active listings. I have some
Wow.
pending ones, but active listings, that is absolutely unheard of in the market in the last couple of years.
Yes.
44 and 22 days, you would not see that. And so that puts us in a whole new realm. It means we have got to do a lot more prep work ahead of time in order to have our listings be successful and have a good relationship with our sellers, because
This
they're
is
not used to
exactly
this.
why I proposed this, Sarah.
Yes. So first, I want to talk a little bit about in dot loop. Oh, Andrea. Oh, 76 and 43. Yep. It's scary, isn't it? It's hard to adjust our brains, to be honest, because my brain's like, oh, that'll sell like that. And we're, 10 showings later, and it's still not, sold.
Well, and that concept of price reductions, which we have to
Yes.
approach that conversation even before you put the listing on the market of what it looks like and how it works.
Yep. So yeah, so first and foremost, when you're taking a listing, look at the dot loop tasks. A lot of people who are, of us that have been in real estate for a while, we tend to have our systems down, but in the dot loop tasks under a listing, for the paperwork for a listing, it lists a lot of things that we need to make sure that we're doing. I know this is pretty basic. We're going to get into some more detail, but pull the MLS history, pull the tax records, review permit history. Jacob taught me a really cool thing that I did not know existed until I was selling more stuff in the cities. When you're out in the boonies, you have to go and call the county or the township or the city and get all this info about permits. But in the cities, there's a lot of cities that just have something called e-permits. You can just look right online and see any permits that have been pulled for that property. So I know a lot of cities that I've checked into, like Edina, St. Louis Park, they all have e-permits. So if you type in e-permits, St. Louis Park, e-permits Edina, check that out. That's a great place to get info on your upcoming listing, on when permits were pulled, when work might have been done. So you can ask the right questions to your sellers.
You're talking about with the individual municipality.
Yes.
Nick has raised his hand
I
here.
see Nick's hand. Yes.
So that task, Sarah, when I actually bought our own house last year, I did that because it's in there. We built it together. It's like we remind ourselves what we got to do.
Yep.
There was a well record, a well sealing record from the month before it was listed, and there was no well disclosure, and there was no disclosure there was a well. So by pulling permits and looking at what work has been done, I mean, City of Bloomington too was good. It saved us a tripping hazard in a deal, but just by getting on there, like Jacob says, it's all electronic now. And I think Steve, in Grand Forks anyway, we got a call, but it saves an agent a ton of pain. And it gave me a PowerPoint with that other agent that I could pin him on by not doing the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Really, as a listing agent, do you want to get that phone call from a buyer's agent or an agent saying, oh, well, there's a well seal, you need to know what your product you're selling. That's number one in sales. You've got to know your product you're selling. So that goes into all of this. And it's your due diligence that you absolutely have to do for your sellers. And in the crazy market, it was very important to do as well. It's not just that the market's slowing. Call and check out the special assessments that are on the property. Know what those are for. I had an agent call me last night and asked me about some special assessments. I said, oh no, there's only a $10 garbage assessment. That's the only thing. She's like, well, why are your taxes so high? I said, well, the value of the home doubled in the last year because it was flipped. And so, I said, you have to know all that. Look at the tax records from the last few years. Know if the taxes have jumped up in value.
And we are seeing that a lot of places. The increase in value and the selling frenzy has caused people to be bitten in the backside by increasing property taxes in a lot of places. People who've never moved are finding it.
Yes.
I've got sellers where they're stunned because their monthly cost has gone up $600. So staying in the house for them is not a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
a lot of times those e-permits and online things won't tell you the balance of the assessment though.
Great.
So that's another good point to call and follow up about. If there's only $2,500 left on the assessment, maybe it's a seller feature to advertise that assessment will be paid off.
Very good.
Or something.
But think about if you didn't look into that assessment,
Right.
Jacob, and you let a buyer come through, I know you wouldn't do this, I'm just using it because you mentioned it. And you had a buyer come through and the agent wrote an offer and it said the seller's going to pay all this stuff. If you haven't done your due diligence to know what that seller is going to be paying for, that could affect the seller's bottom line on their net. And that could really be a negative situation. You always want your sellers to get more than you estimate on the net sheet, not find out they have an assessment that they now have to pay off because you didn't do your due diligence. So, but
A little on the permit issue, a little legal point. There is no requirement for permits to be closed out to transfer the ownership of a house. I'm not saying at all that it's something you want to ignore, but if it comes to that, because there are places where lots of work has been done and never was a permit ever pulled.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and that's good to know too. If that's kind of the opposite side, if your sellers are filling out that disclosure, read that disclosure. Ask questions of your sellers of what they've put in that disclosure. Make sure there's not gaps and things not filled in on the disclosure. Because let's say your sellers say, oh, well, we totally remodeled our kitchen last year.
Red flag.
But then you find out no permits were pulled and there's walls that have been taken down and plumbing that's been moved. That could pose an issue.
Who did this? Yeah.
Yeah. So, then the buyer comes, oh, well, there were no permits pulled. Well, I mean, you always work, if you're listing a house, you work for your sellers and you represent them, but you got to have that background knowledge so you're not caught in the middle of a situation that you don't have the answers to. So the list, has everybody seen the task list on Dotloop? I was going to share.
Maybe you remind people where it is.
I'm going to share screen. I've been having trouble trying to get my screen to share, but I think I can do it. So hold on here. Can you guys see my Dotloop screen?
Yep.
Okay. So let's go here. This is a listing. Let's go down. So if you see all the documents in there, and then you keep going down and you see people, and then you see tasks. So all of these tasks, make sure that these are done when you are getting ready to list a property. All of this should be done. I know I'm not good about going in and checking them off because I have my own checklists, but it's a good idea, especially if you're newer at taking listings, to go in and check all that off.
Nick, is there a way in Dotloop to pull this off as a document? I mean, I know very well where it is and what's on it, but
no, I mean, anything is possible. Is pulling it as a document, not necessarily without a cut and paste.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah,
you could just cut and paste it or something if you want to use it as a physical.
Copy it somehow.
What do you need a physical copy, Carson, for some reason?
Well, the question has come up. I mean, it can be nice to have something that, here's what we're going to do, or something you can.
Oh, okay, sure.
With it, even with the client.
Sure.
Because
Gotcha.
it's things, it's a value add that we're going to do all these things, but a screenshot is what Jacob's talking about, of course, but that can be kind of scrappy, but I've done that.
Cut and paste. Cut and paste.
Yeah. So we kind of covered some of the beginning ones. Next, request utility totals from sellers or from seller. That's something that I often will put online. I will have a little sheet that they fill out and then I make it pretty and have it typed up, but I have it online. It says the utility totals for a property that I have listed, because that just, again, presents the property in a great light. And then you don't have those questions coming to you later. So get those utility totals, measure the property. Don't go on the measurements from the previous seller. They are often wrong. And you don't want to be caught in that. So go and take the time to measure the property. And if you have trouble measuring properties, ask somebody to go with you to teach you. I mean, Carson's a pro at measuring properties.
Well, and I found listings recently where the previous listing showed less square footage than I measured, and the one before that showed more.
Yep.
And just
right. So you want to be accurate.
Yeah, and if you want, and sometimes you have to make a judgment, and people will look at the tax record, and that might be a safe bet, depending. And you may have justification for why you changed it to a higher number.
Right.
If the tax record didn't count blank or whatever space.
Yep. Nick raised his hand, like the little
Yeah,
hand.
go for it, Nick.
I'm trying to be official, I'm used to these committee meetings where we're raising our hands to speak. So that measure property, Sarah, is so important. Even on the same deal I mentioned with the permits, they overinflated the square footage and I caught them by measuring, even on the buy side.
Yep.
And it gave us leverage on negotiating. So just by checking ourselves, and this was an easy house, Bloomington Rambler, right? It's like a rectangle.
Yeah,
It's
big
really
box.
easy. And they overstated the finished square footage, and by measuring or by just being aware that something wasn't right as an agent, I saved a ton of money. And
Yeah,
I have even more leverage on those sellers.
Yeah. Good one. And the most common thing I see that I can see when I have read the listing and do a walkthrough with a buyer is they count every inch of the basement as finished, and it's not likely that it is.
That's right.
And it's not the same value anyway, but you can see it's like, well, they included this furnace room and this and storage room under the stairs that
Floor, ceiling, wall cover. Floor,
Mhm.
ceiling, wall cover, right?
Mhm.
So
Absolutely. And with measuring the property, I mean, you measure the inside, measure the room sizes on the inside, but you have to measure the outside of the property too. And Jenny and I always do a drawing of the house when it's got little jut outs and different things. We measure the jut
Right.
outs. I mean, it takes time, but this is your profession. You need to be putting that time in to show that you are a quality listing agent and quality real estate professional.
And on that, Sarah, the quick note, of square footage on a single family residence is the outside dimensions.
Yes.
So
Yep.
Jacob's condo gets shortchanged because they measure it from the inside.
Mhm. Yep. Bummer.
As an example.
Complete the MLS input form. My MLS input form gets really messy by the end of it because I go through before listing and I fill out everything based on the tax info and everything that I can see that I know to be fact to put in. But then I highlight different things to ask the sellers, and I sit down and I go through every section and ask those questions because I want the most thorough MLS input form possible. And then I'm making notes as they're talking. They might say, oh yeah, that refrigerator downstairs, we're not including that, and different things. Your MLS input sheet doesn't have to be pretty, but it does need to be very well filled out. And mine has chicken scratches all over it. So that's probably why I input myself. But that's the more info you can put in there, because as they're talking, you're not always remembering everything at the end. So make sure you're making notes, and that's a great place just to put your notes. Order your sign installation. Now, I often have to order on my own when it's outside the metro, but we've got Tom here, very nice that he can just order your sign installation for you, and then you get charged for it. But line everything up right. If you are getting sign installation done, they're going to be marking up the yard. So you don't want pictures to happen after they've already marked up the yard and already put the sign up. So you've got to really work on timing everything out. Pictures done, then sign ordered. So they mark up, then, or pictures after everything's done, but it's not marked anymore. So you've really got to put a lot of thought into it. So anybody that calls you and says, oh, I want my house listed tomorrow, that's not really the best plan. That's not good for you. It's not good for the seller, especially in this market. That is not good. You want all your info up there and complete at the beginning. Your photo shoot, we talked about that, brochures. Make something to have at the house. I walk into houses, these big expensive houses, and I know that there's lots of information that I don't know just based on the MLS sheet, but there's no info at the house. Create a nice book. I create a home book for my listings, and it's got info about schools and parks in the area and photos from the community and, floor plans that I've gotten professionally ordered. Make your listing show that you are the professional and you're giving the information to a buyer that they might need to know about that property.
A good place, Sarah, where I engage sellers, particularly if they have some pride that they've done a bunch of things. I ask them to make a list
Yes.
of what they call, and they don't understand improvements versus repairs. So I usually take that list and edit it. Well, I always edit it, but because we don't want to call something an improvement that was just a repair item. But
Right. Yeah.
so I create that and use it as a supplement.
Yes. Yep. I put them in supplements. I put them at the house. Yeah, well, and I always tell my sellers, and they're like, oh, well, I have to fill this out. It's a list of upgrades and improvements and what's included in the sale, what's excluded, as far as appliances and such. Oh, I have to fill this out. I said, yep, because you know what? Everything that you've done an improvement on, I'm going to list. And when people come to see the house, they say, oh, new carpet in this year, new water heater this year. I said, all that, it's the psychology of it. Everything a buyer sees, it's an upgrade that's been done, ticks up the value on the house. Oh, they made all these upgrades. Well, I guess it's worth more then. It's the whole psychology behind the thing. And it's just, again, presenting yourself well. Send out those just listed cards and just sold cards and all that, the coming soon, just listed, it's easy. There's companies everywhere that do this. I've always ordered from Prospect Plus. I might change that up, but I already have my template in there. But order that. Nick, I see your hand.
Yeah, sorry, I know I put Chime Design Center in here, but their requirements have changed 100 to 500. So just know that I can change that item. It shouldn't say that, but yeah, at least what, Sarah, the nearest 100, what do you recommend?
I do 250.
Do you? Big one.
Yep.
Good.
Yeah.
Yep. Whether it's in the cities or out in the boonies, because I figure, 250 eyes are going to see this property that wouldn't see it necessarily. So to me, that's been a good number. And I've had people that have held on to those and later called and said, hey, I want to list my house. I have your postcard here. So it's just another touch, Go ahead, Nick.
Sorry, Sarah. It's so ironic we're talking about this because I just listened to a study yesterday, a marketing study, okay? And it was a real estate marketing study. And what they did is they went into a neighborhood with about 100 houses and they went door to door, every door. And they said, what agent would be number one in this neighborhood?
Oh, wow.
Okay, and this was a marketing firm, and there was a smattering of answers, no real solid trend. Okay, so then what they did is they picked another neighborhood and they did an 8x8 postcard campaign, and they sent 8 postcards for 8 weeks every week, and with a fictitious agent. They made up an agent. It's not even an agent. Like, they just made it up and they made it look shiny. So they went into that neighborhood and they knocked on every door. They did the same thing, and they said, "Who is the top agent in this neighborhood?" Sam. It blows my mind. Like, postcards work, Sarah, right? That's why we're talking about it. It was just amazing to me how effective.
Jacob Sam was a bot.
Yeah, how an 8x8 campaign or 1 postcard a week can change the perception so easily. So just know that's powerful.
Yeah. Well, and it's all about being multifaceted. Like, you want to reach out through social media, you want to reach out through print, you want to reach out in so many different ways because you don't know who's going to see a property. Some people are never on social media. Some people never look at their mail. So you never know how you're going to catch somebody. So you want to use a lot of different formats to reach out to people. That's why I always have, social media campaigns going. I've got postcard campaigns going, the newspaper. I might even get back into newspaper in some of our listings out in the boonies, because that's huge out in the boonies. I don't know if it's big up in North Dakota, but that's big in like the Princeton, Zimmerman, Malacca area.
Newspaper you're talking about?
Yeah, all the have newspapers.
It's kind of a reversion to print. Like, we're seeing some people revert to print. Like, we see agents up in the northern markets, like Steve's Market, where they are starting newspaper advertising again, and the rates are actually better because newspapers were suffering.
Yep.
They could use it, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So those are all things that are important. Schedule the first open house. Get that open house scheduled. In the past, we didn't have a lot of time to get to open houses. Houses were selling so quick, but I tell you, and open houses, some areas they work better than others. Let's be honest. They don't work very well up in the Malacca area on a country property. There's some barriers there. People don't want to walk onto somebody's acreage. So they don't work as well there.
Well,
but
you don't drive by the open house sign either.
Exactly. With a lot of marketing, you do get some traffic, but I held an open house on Sunday in Lake Elmo, and I was shocked. I had 8 interested groups through, and they said, "Oh, my agent sent me. Oh, my agent sent me. Yeah, I'm super interested in this house." Now, if I wouldn't have held that open house, that's 8 less eyes that would have seen it. And we have potentially 2 offers. I don't know if they'll come through, but potentially 2 offers that are coming from 2 people from that open house. So again, be faceted, different, reach out to people in different ways. let's see, and get that open house in there. Like, don't just Saturday morning go, oh, I'm holding an open house, I'm going to put it in the MLS. Put it in the MLS like up to a week ahead of time, and then do some marketing surrounding, hey, open house Sunday at 12, Sunday at 12. Make sure people are aware that that's coming up. And, you know, and you never know, you might have friends stop by, who knows, but it's, again, it's a touch and it's a good representation of your listing. Share the new listing on social media. Yep, there is a link from the Chime website, makes it very, very easy. You can also create your own, you know, share it into those local groups. I get a lot of traction from those local groups, and I've gotten a lot of buyers that way. They'll see my posts, they'll, you know, hey, I'm interested in this house, tell me more about it. It ends up not being the house for them, but I'm showing my value, and then they end up becoming a buyer for a different house. So get out there, and not just on Marketplace, but get into those local groups, you know, the buy, sell, trade Twin Cities or whatever, you know, get into your local groups. I'm in the Lake Elmo groups now that I have a Lake Elmo listing. I just keep joining them every time I have a new listing in a new area. It gets a little overwhelming sometimes, but, but keep doing that. Craigslist is not dead either. For those of you that have stopped using Craigslist, I know that was really big when I started in real estate, but get back into it because people are still going on Craigslist and looking at things. And it's kind of interesting. So don't forget about it. Run ads through the Exit Ad Center, you know, or maybe you have your own format, but run those ads. All of this stuff, you know, can't be done in a day. So we have to make sure that when we take a listing, you take it and you put it in withheld status right away. And then you spend a good 2 weeks getting it ready for market the appropriate way. Do the coming soon. Do, you know, have it coming soon for, you know, 3 days to a week. I don't know. I don't feel like you want to leave it sitting and coming soon for longer than a week, because I think the attention span is short and people forget about it. But it'll still pop back up when it goes active. But I find the sweet spot is if I kind of put coming soon on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, and have it go active that next Thursday or Friday. Seems to work really well. But then consider too that everyone's listing houses, we're all in that pattern of having them go active on a Thursday or Friday, because then they're sold by the end of the weekend. See about coming soon and going active on a Monday, you know, because then
you're change it up.
Yeah. So think of some ways to mix it up a little, but the point is take the time up front. You know, I used to, somebody say, oh, I want to list my house. I want it on the market tomorrow. Okay, let me jump through a million hoops and get it listed. Nope, that's not how I run my business anymore, because that's not the best way to present your property. And, you know, once in a while you have situations that come up where they might be in foreclosure or something, but generally you want to show that you're the professional, and the way you can show you're the professional is through appropriate prep work ahead of time. So use the chapter list.
Could I back up? You've talked extensively about marketing the property, but yes. I think we're coming into a period with longer market time where preparing the property is so very important. And we talked about permits and research and things. And yep. Jacob may smile at this, but with some clients, I make a punch list and start even going down. I've got one that's very long, Jacob, and identifying who might do this and then rearranging it in priorities, because some people will be overwhelmed, and here's the most important things that we need to get done. And asking questions like, do you have someone who could help you do this? Or do you have someone who could paint? Do you have someone who can help you clean? How are you planning to get these boxes removed from the basement? Can this freezer be removed? And getting things cleaned up, and less is better, and emptied out. So that's can be a big part of the process for people who've been in a house a long time.
And when they've been in a house a long time, they don't see the same things that we see.
Yeah.
And we need to show we're the professional, and we need to have those conversations. Some people are like, oh, I don't want to have that conversation. That's a tough conversation. That's your job. You need to have those tough conversations, because your job is to present that property in the very best light possible. And, you know, if you're not into staging, maybe you hire a stager on some listings, or, you know, I mean, Jenny and I have a whole storage unit full of staging stuff that we pull out and we bring into houses that are empty or just really need some help. these things help, anything you can do, and reach out to, if you're not an expert in staging or you're not an expert in helping people with certain things, find the experts who are and make them part of your team. I know Carson does a lot of staging, but he has a professional stager as well. She's part of his team.
Yeah, I always have to find, I remember when somebody said, why does that bedroom look the same as that condo downtown? And now we're in a house in St. Louis Park.
Yes.
It's the same bedspread and the same pillow.
And that is the funny part. Yeah. But I like what you said about that. Yeah, you do give them a punch list. Absolutely.
So that's, yeah. And we often do it with a Google Doc that we can share with the clients and interactive and add notes. And sometimes they find it inspiring to have one where they can go on a list you create and they can mark that this is done and this is.
Yep. I also have a little sheet I put it on, and here's your punch list. Here's the important dates to remember. This is when photos are. This is when the sign will go up. This is when coming soon starts. It's all on one sheet, so they can just put it on their fridge and look at it and go, okay, this is what I have to do. This is what's going to happen. And it's very helpful. I can share it with you guys at some point. I didn't even think about it today. I had gotten a compliment a couple weeks ago, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I just really love to take listings and really do everything I can with them. But Chris Deutsch said, what a wonderful presentation of this property. And I really took that to heart, because I thought, you know what, that was really meaningful to hear, because it is about our presentation, adding floor plans, adding the Matterport tour. There's so many things that you can do. And yes, they cost money, but you're getting paid plenty to sell a house. So make sure that you're utilizing it and getting it sold for top dollar. It's only going to benefit you in the end to make more money, sell it for more. Let's see. I was looking at the I was looking at the comments, the chat. Other thoughts. I think I've kind of gone through most of what I was going to cover, and Carson covered. Carson, did you have anything else? I know Nick has his hand up. So Carson, did you have anything? And then we'll ask Nick.
Oh my,
we'll have a little round table.
Sorry. I just was emphatic about that kind of a punch list and informing people what needs to be done, again, in a new market, because they don't know. And you talked about open houses. Hey, I'll go back to bringing a roll of wait for it, paper towels, not what you were thinking, and Windex to an open house, and make sure the front door and the cobwebs are gone around the trim, and that first experience people have looks good.
Yeah.
Somebody could have cleaned it yesterday, and it's in this climate, it could be messed up again. So anyway, that's Nick was waiting.
Yep.
No, that's okay. Just two quick things. What Sarah said, I'm just going to piggyback on that your listing is your reputation. So what you do to get ready and how thorough you are to get ready is your reputation. And you better be able to replicate that with most listings and get better every time. Take good notes. Like Sarah, I'm sure takes good notes every time, and something she can do differently the next time. That is so crucial in taking listings and getting a good reputation. So, and then when it comes to one of these items on our checklist, Sarah, the one where it says schedule first open houses on the MLS, there's a strategy to this.
Oh, good.
Okay, and so when you put the listing in the MLS, and timing of listings, we debate timing of listings. It changes all the time, but I always wanted to do a Wednesday, because then it has 2 days of syndication before the first open houses.
Sure.
So when you put schedule first open houses, it's the first line in the public remarks, and it's bold. First open houses this weekend, Saturday 12 to 2, Sunday, whatever it is. Leave that in there when that listing goes live, because what's going to happen is all the traffic in the marketplace and all those people looking at it before they call their agents or they even find an agent, they're going to wait, and they're going to come through your open. So one, you got to give them enough time you got to give the IDX, the MLS, the data source enough time to get this message out there, because no one can alter public remarks. So everybody's captive to you. Okay. And you can't, of course, do any kind of self-promotion in public remarks, but we're allowed to say first open houses, this state. What I found in the past is that this drives so much traffic, and it drives so many people in the marketplace that don't have agents to my open, that you just got to remember to take it out of there.
I was just going to add that.
After the first weekend. Well, if you're working with Tom as an input, or Sarah's inputting her own stuff, you just got to remember to take the first sentence out of there after Sunday.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, if you start using that strategy combined with everything else, it's just going to drive so many people to your open.
Yep.
That's all I
Very
have.
good point. Thank you for adding that. That's a very good point. Jacob.
That, and I really just hate when I see coming soon listings with only one photo,
Yes,
or like
thank
3
you.
exterior photos.
It's not worth putting it in coming soon if you don't have enough.
It's such a disservice to your seller, because when you add the rest of those photos in, it's not popping back up. People have already clicked it. People have already looked at it. They didn't see what they needed to see, and now they've gone. They will see it again when it goes active, which you better really better have the photos in by then. But that I've never, you especially when a client sends you a coming soon listing with one photo as a buyer's agent, and they're asking you questions about it, and you're like, there is no point in opening this can of worms until we know what else is going on here, because you know how different it can be.
So our best practice is to have the full set of photos in before you go coming soon. I totally support that, Jacob.
And the listing fully fleshed out. I mean, everything really.
Well, and Jacob, in that situation, isn't it annoying when you read the agent remarks and it says, photos coming in a week? The client doesn't see that. Like, the client has no clue, and they're going to pass over that listing. That listing agent is doing that seller a disservice.
Yeah. And once in a while, you'll have a seller that you just can't, they just won't cooperate with you no matter what. And you're forced to do something like that. But yeah, generally speaking, I mean, these are all such amazing tips to keep in mind. I mean, I forget about the open house, putting that into the remarks. So I'm glad that Nick, you mentioned that, because that's very, very important. That's a great way to get people to come to you instead of calling an agent off Zillow going, hey, I want to see this house. There's an open house coming up.
They're going to wait for you. Clients want one thing. They just want what they want. They have no loyalty. And we know that. They have some loyalty, right? We have clients that are loyal and they refer us business. But in general, we cannot fault the public for just wanting what they want.
Yeah.
So we have to capitalize on that strategy, and that open house strategy will do that.
Yep. And if you've got really cool documents that you use with your listings that you want to share, throw them up into the private group, because we're all in this together. Why reinvent the wheel? If you've got a really cool utility information sheet, or you've got a really great template for something, put it in the private group. We'd all love to see it, even if it's a screenshot, and then somebody can reach out to you for, more information or something. It's just, we're all in this together, and why not help each other so we're not all spending the same amount of time, recreating things.
Well, and if you need something, come to something in the loop that's missing in the template. Let Sarah know, let Carson know, let me know. Let's create more value. So, right now, actually, what I'm working on is a standardized input sheet. That's not the MLS input. That is a more glossy, foldable version you can take to the property with you and start gaining details, utilities, and so we don't forget anything. Just one of those things. So if there's other things out there that we're missing that you're doing on your own that you don't want to replicate on your own, let us know. Let's get it done. Let's get it in there because it adds value.
Absolutely. When I go, I have a whole packet that I put a Post-it note on. I say seller homework with a sign face. And I say it's very important to present your property well, that I get some of the information from you. And this is what I need you to have filled out by such and such a date. And I mean, that's the teacher in me, but it sets the tone too for the whole relationship. And and the other thing that we haven't covered with any of this for prepping for a listing is having the conversations that need to be had with our sellers that we never had to have a year or two ago. When you go to a listing appointment, know the average days on market for that price point in that area, and tell them, do not expect to have your home sold after the first weekend. The market has shifted. That's okay. It's not a bad thing, but I want you to know it may take 30 days for a $575,000 townhouse to go under contract in this market. So really have all those conversations up front, because then you don't have them calling you saying, hey, why isn't my house sold yet? And you're going, what? It shouldn't be sold yet. It helps you for later to have all those conversations. And that comes from doing your research as well on the stats and And, we've got all that accessible to us in InfoSparks and, the quick stat sheets that you can print off. Bring that with, what are they called? The market update sheet.
Mhm.
I just print that off sometimes and bring it and discuss, hey, look at the coming listing, the pending listings are down, the days on market are up. Bring that, and it's a good talking point.
76 and 43.
Yeah, well, and what Sarah's doing by doing that is she's setting herself apart against any competition, so that seller may be bringing somebody else in to interview. Actually, in first interviews, I've said in the past too, you should be interviewing 2 other agents, right? Because you know that you have your shit together. I like to swear something. You have your shit together so well that they're going to come in and they're going to close that deal for you. Okay. If you come in and you demonstrate, and I'm sure Sarah has a whole class on listing appointment strategy, right? There's so much strategy there. But by demonstrating how complete and how professional you are in this setting is how you win those listings.
Absolutely. Yep. And if you go to a listing appointment, sometimes when you get into some of the stats or, you feel out your people and know, the people you're meeting, feel them out. If you've got a high D or, a high C, you're going to know what direction to go. But sometimes you just get started and you know which way you're going, and you might be signing paperwork within 15, minutes because you've read them correctly and they're like, yep, we're good to go. And so know your audience, but don't be afraid to also be there with those S's and C's for an hour and a half. Like I went to an appointment, can't remember what it was. And they said, okay, our appointment starts now and it's 30 minutes long. At the end of 30 minutes, I end the appointment. And I'm like, what? I'm like, what if I have more questions? Like,
Okay.
So if you're saying, oh, well, I get in and out of a listing appointment in 30 minutes, in some cases that might be okay. In other cases, that might kill your deal. So read the people that you're meeting.
Well, and I would go even further with that, Sarah. I ask when I have an appointment how much time they have scheduled for this meeting so that we can tailor the conversation. And that creates immediate respect, because you don't want to be droning on about your marketing plan 90 minutes into it when they have places to go and children to pick up. And so gauge it accordingly. That has been a really effective tool.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
And also, I state at the beginning of my meetings, here's our goal. Here are our goals for the meeting.
Yep.
Here are our goals for this listing appointment. And I always end it with deciding on, I can't remember how I phrase it, like, getting the paperwork signed or something. Like I say it so it's not like overwhelming, but it's like, well, this is the end goal that I'd like to have at this meeting. So you can lay.
I hope everyone saw Jacob's last comments about, it reminds me of the importance when you're not off the market in 5 days, edit and change your remarks. Like Jacob says, there's nothing more embarrassing than something that says price to sell will go fast and it's 60 days on the market.
Eye roll worthy. That's like meme worthy, Jacob, right? We see those on Instagram and Facebook all the time.
Oh yeah.
That's
Amateur hour.
Yeah.
Amateur hour, yes. Or new carpet will be installed on May 8th and you're looking at the property in July. Who gives a shit?
Then you have to just say in the description, oh, new carpeting as of May. Yeah. And keep in mind what you have in the agent remarks and what you have in the public remarks so that you know what the public is seeing versus what they're not seeing. Pay really close attention to that, and don't put the same agent remarks as public remarks.
Oh, it's terrible.
Yes, thank you. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So it's a waste of airspace.
Yep, absolutely. And we're all happy to read over each other's listing, what am I trying to say? Public remarks. We're all, I'm happy to read them over for somebody or go, hey, what about this cool feature? And Jenny and I read over each other and we write them and stuff.
Exactly. And I can't make everyone do it, but I write captions, lifestyle captions for every single freaking picture.
Yep.
It's not always fun with a dumpy house, but
another picture of this cozy kitchen.
This patio door looks out onto the gravel pit backyard.
Yeah, but that is another thing to be professional is add captions. I hate it when I look at the captions on photos and it says like photo 5 living room.
Oh, I know.
JPG 67.
I know. Well, and what do online shoppers do? They scroll through photos. They see those more often than they look at the listing remarks. So
Absolutely.
I'm hard over on that idea. Every single frickin' picture, because you don't know where they're going to start and where they're going to stop, and you want to identify what's going on, help them understand the relationship of one room to the other when they're looking at a picture.
Yep. Yep.
They might be curious what the flooring is made out of, or
That can all be put in your captions. Yeah.
exactly. There's things that you can't say
one.
otherwise that make more sense when you're looking at a photo and you're talking about the materials and the upgrades. And one of my last listings is like, you're looking at a beautiful cabinet in the dining room, and I noted this can be removed. There are windows behind this.
It's a good thing to know.
Also a good disclosure item.
Well, and use logical picture order
Yes.
when it comes to flow of the house, like
Yeah.
as
Oh, yeah,
professional,
yeah.
you professionals do, but just how you walk in and what you see next, that's logical picture order makes sense.
Yep. It does.
Yeah. So they can get it in their mind. They haven't seen it obviously. So any tool you can help them visualize, the picture order makes a difference.
And don't put the park that's 8 blocks away up front.
No, yeah, don't put 8 photos of the nearby attractions.
Yes.
I actually think the association should allow that. I just don't.
I
like
know. I have a listing right now where my sellers made me put them on there, and I'm like, ugh. They're like, we want everyone to know what's right by our place. I'm like, all right, fine.
Yeah. Well, and
Well, I think
sometimes
if you
it's-
tag them on the end, it's
Yeah.
logical, you know.
Yeah.
but some listings it's not really right by the place, and it's like, really?
Right.
Well, and a note too, when you do those professional floor plans and they're based off the Matterport, basically a lot of times, don't take those measurements to be your measurements because they're not always accurate, and their square footage is often off their total square footage.
Yeah.
So when you've got those Matterport tours that create the floor plans, go and measure on your own, and know that they are going to be different because
Yeah, I actually suggest don't putting dimensions on floor plans at all.
Yeah.
We have to enter dimensions in the room remarks, right? But don't,
point.
Sarah's 100% right. Do not rely on those.
Yeah. And
It's
it's
a
hard because
liability.
they come with them right on the bottom, and I debate whether I should take that off or if I'm messing with it, but I always say don't rely on the floor plan measurements, and I don't.
Smart.
Have to color them out.
Yes, that's probably what I'll start doing. I've debated whether I should or not, but I actually had an appraiser call me not too long ago and say, yeah, your floor plan measurements aren't correct. And I said, well, that's an auto-generated thing based off of the Matterport tour that was done. He's like, yeah, because your measurements are different than the measurements on the floor plan. And he's like, and my measurements are a little different than your measurements. And I said, well, I did go and measure. And I said, tell me what your measurements are. We were like 6 inches apart. I'm like,
Oh my.
it was a very particular appraiser.
Yeah.
But so that comes into play too with the appraiser if you don't have the wrong measurements on the floor plan. So
Yeah. I think the biggest takeaway here today is that as we transition into a more traditional market, we have to do a better job. We have to do more preparations. We have to edit and rearrange pictures and update language in our listing photos and our listing data because of going on the market for a longer period of time and keeping it fresh. So not new to some, but it's important best practices.
And it should take you hours upon hours to prep a listing.
Oh yeah.
It's going to take you a long time if you do it correctly. So,
well, and Sarah, haven't you seen in brokerages where some people will get a listing manager or a listing assistant, and they share it? You can share a listing assistant to help organize this busy. It's C work. Right? It's C work, and it can be really daunting. So don't hesitate to, if you have someone who's really good, to share an assistant and pay them a little bit of money to get the input right and to get the photos right, and just take the burden off of you, because as a high sales agent, your job, connect with the client, right? Get them on the right path, set good expectations, and offload some of that kind of work that takes a lot of your time. And it's hard because you want to control it because you're so white knuckle on quality, and that's great. Just make sure they understand that.
Yeah. Because
give
those
yourself
high sales agents might not remember whether that fireplace was in the bedroom or in the lower level.
That's where you put good people around you,
Yeah.
and in that function that can really save you some time, whether it be a new agent who needs to learn the business, and then just check the work when it's done, but be creative.
Absolutely. Any other thoughts or anything anybody would like to add?
I have a helpful tip.
Okay.
I knew you wouldn't be silent the whole time, Steve.
So
Not your nature.
if you have a vacant listing, take the time to check on it at least once a week,
Oh, yeah.
inside and out. Don't just drive by. Pop the lockbox and go inside.
Mhm.
So we've all been to showings as a buyer's agent where maybe the yard wasn't kept up or there's weeds, but the 4-letter words come around snow.
Mhm.
Everybody's been on a showing that hasn't had the snow removal done, maybe for 1 or 2 snows, and you're trying to get buyers into a house and you're up to your knees in snow, and it just doesn't do your sellers any service. So make sure they either have it arranged or you have it arranged for them. I'm not saying mow your client's lawn, but make sure their lawn is mowed.
Mhm.
So that's my one tip for the day.
It's a very good point. Thank you. Yeah, we forget snow is coming soon. Probably coming to Steve before it comes to the rest of us, but
All right. But you go into a house and the basement's full of water.
yeah.
I went to a showing here on a commercial property that's been vacant for a while, and there was a window broken out on each side. I mean, nobody's checking on it. And so just don't be that agent where you're not checking on your stuff.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. And it can be overwhelming. I mean, I have 3 vacant listings right now that we're checking on frequently, but that is your job. That is part of your process, and you are the professional, so you need to be doing that. So thank you. Awesome. Any other thoughts? No? All right. Well, I like the bird sound in the background. I think that might be Carson's.
That's me.
I love that. Awesome.
I'm outside for a reason, but we'll talk about that.
Well, I love these kinds of trainings when we're all putting our heads together, and I appreciate everybody that has input, because just because I'm leading the training doesn't mean that I have every answer. Like, I forgot all about the tidbit about putting the open house into the public remarks and stuff. So I gain something from every training we have and appreciate everybody's input. So thank you for everybody that signed on today, and thanks for all of your input. And I wish you all a wonderful rest of the week. We'll see you guys.
Yeah.
Take care.
Thank you,
Bye,
Sarah.
everyone.
Yep, thanks.